Hello, I'm Carla Hayden, the Librarian of Congress, and welcome to this special event celebrating Native American Heritage Month for 2021. And as we begin this discussion today, I want to start by acknowledging that we are present in the ancestral homeland of the Piscataway tribe, and we pay our respects to them as the traditional custodians of the land where the library now sits. We're delighted to be joined by our 23rd U.S. Poet Laureate, Joy Harjo. Joy, a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation, is the first Native American poet to serve as our laureate. She is currently serving a third term and promoting her signature project, Living Nations, Living Words, which you can check out on our website, loc.gov. She has also edited an anthology for the project, which I have here, a handsome copy featuring a map from our geography and map division on the cover. And today, Joy has come from her hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma, to join and help us welcome an old friend of hers to the Library of Congress, Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland. Like Joy, Secretary Haaland is a trailblazer. In 2018, she was one of the first Native American women elected to Congress, and she is the first Native American cabinet secretary in U.S. history. The secretary is a member of the Pueblo of Ghana and a 35th generation New Mexican. So we're delighted to have her here today from the other side of the Capitol to talk to us about the power of poetry. Welcome, both of you. And I have to ask how you came to know each other, because I understand you've been knowing each other for quite a while.
Yes, I've known Joy since I took a class of hers when I was at UNM as an undergraduate. I was a big fan of hers for a long time and realized that I needed an elective class when I was a senior in college. And I was so lucky to have her class when I was a senior.
I always remember her coming in that day because you came in with a motorcycle helmet.
Oh, that should have made an impression.
It did, because you didn't look like look like the usual motorcycle person, but you told me at some point that it had to do with fossil fuels and not wanting to waste, wanting to use a car to waste gas.
And so that consciousness
Yes.
about the land, of course, was part of your tradition, but also you very much a part of your life.
Yes, and what a perfect way to express yourself and your views and your passions than with poetry, right?
And to have a professor that you knew about and everything, was that pretty thrilling? Was it intimidating?
It was very thrilling for me, of course. Everyone wanted to take her class, and I think I must have signed up a little late because I needed to get approval, which was why I went to her office to ask her if I could get in. And of course, she's always very supportive of Native American students. And even after I took her class, I believe it was spring semester, she invited me that summer to the very first Native American Writers Conference, Returning the Gift Writers Conference in Norman, Oklahoma. So I drove with her and her daughter and her granddaughter to Oklahoma. We went on a road trip, and I was inspired wholly during that entire weekend. It was an amazing opportunity for me.
Yes, that was a gathering. It was the first gathering of its kind, very historic, of Native writers from everywhere from the continental U.S. to Hawaii. People from South America even came up for that conference, and people still talk about it. There were readings, people read, there were meetings, and it was quite a historic gathering.
And then you went on, I understand that you have an anthology, and you were in it, Secretary.
Yes, yes, I have a poem in there, and in fact, I believe I was working for Joy at the time, so we've been together for a long time. At one time, I could walk to her house because we live that close to each other. So for some reason, our lives are always intertwined, and of course, it's always perfect.
Well, I have to ask then, your lives have been intertwined since you were a student coming in with a helmet and all of this, and being in the class of a professor you followed, and then through the years. How does it feel to be together now, the Poet Laureate of the United States and the Secretary of Interior?
Well, I guess I can, for me, like there are a lot of people in my life who keep me truly humble. My child is one of them, but certainly folks back home, they'll always keep you humble. And I'm sure
Really?
Joy can
It helps.
relate to that. And so it's almost like we still have the same relationship we did way back then. Things haven't changed between us, and so.
Yeah.
Trusted friends, someone that you can talk to about anything.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
you can go together. So you also share that love of poetry. Now, one path went to Poet Laureate, another to Secretary of the Interior, but you still have that love of poetry, and I understand that you have poems that you wanted to read to each other.
Yes. Yeah, and they're very connected because, being a poet is very connected to environmental justice. At least I see poetry. Words have power. They move through us. I consider words, especially poetic words or words of poetry, moving through from that place we come from the creative force that loves us. And I got into poetry because of a love for, I could see that words could change things. And as I came to poetry because certainly I love language, but because of a love for the land and for justice. I started writing poetry as a student at the University of New Mexico also, and I was part of the Kiva Club, and our work, it was started as a social club, but we became kind of a central location for, environmental justice. I sat in with meetings with co-companies, and then I would respond in poetry in my own quiet way, just writing about what I was seeing. I wasn't up front making speeches, but I was making poetry. And poetry comes from listening to the plants, to all of it. There's this immense conversation going on, between the plants and the stones and our ancestors and other poets, and I came to poetry. So it's similar. Deb is doing, coming out of that, and is a good poet, and has come out of. She's doing the work in another kind of way that's much more. It's hardcore. Yeah.
And it works together, though,
Yes, it does.
because you bring that sensibility to what you're doing.
Words matter.
They do. And to have you, and I just opened the book to try to find it, and there you were, right there, right there in that. So what would you like to share with each other and share with all of us, too?
I'd like to share. I'll start with this poem. It's a prose poem, which means it's not in short lines or more lyric, but even in prose, there's lyricism in prose. And it's called For Water. And certainly, and this was foretold, and I know Deb always like me, we like to be in those circles of people who know things, and then you get to my age, or our age even, that all of those teachers are gone. A lot of them, we still have their words, we still have the tracks of their words, what they've left behind. And one of the things they used to say was the water, that the water is precious, and we were going to deal with water shortages, fires, the things that we're seeing now. But we need to speak for water. I mean, humans were made of water, high percentage of water. And so what does water ask for human beings? Water wants to be acknowledged. We all have a charge to care for it. So this poem is called For Water. A Fight by Deb Holland. A fight for water, for land, begins at home. At the kitchen table, in the bath before bed, while your mother recites a story from her childhood. Our family traditions: to watch out for land, water, animals, to pray to and for them so they will always be there. Don't waste was my mother's mantra, a mantra for the ages, to be careful with the things that keep us alive. Not one drop of water has come into or left our planet in 4.6 billion years. We have to make it last. At a tender age, my grandma woke me up at sunrise to fetch water. The sun casts the golden light on the red mesa at 6 a.m., and the dirt road is welcoming. A shallow pan was all anyone needed to begin a day. Let it rain is what desert Indians say. I am here because my ancestors knew how to survive, how to plant, how to harvest, how to collect water, dance, and pray for rain. I'm here because my ancestors believed that living another day was worth my life. Giving is like receiving, and above all else, staying on the land our mother beckoned us to so many centuries ago was her plan, not ours. The obligation works both ways. It can now be determined that Indians should not perish from the earth, but be fruitful and multiply. Annihilation was never meant to be. But the Indian wars are not yet finished, and the Indians are still fighting, still defending what is theirs, like their ancestors, defending the same water and the same land, a repeat of the not so ancient past. Indians have given enough, a wise Pueblo woman once said. The Lakotas and Dakotas and the white earth people who once roamed for thousands of miles like the buffalo, unencumbered until fences and people and gunshot and cannons took their toll. The water is what they still have, what we still have.
I have to put my glasses on for this one.
Good.
So I am reading from An American Sunrise, and this was the book that Joy published when she became the U.S. Poet Laureate, which I was so proud of. And I just want to say this: we're all firsts, and I think that's important. So thank you also, Dr. Hayden. This is called My Man's Feet by Joy Harjo. They are heroic roots. You cannot mistake them for any other 6-foot walker. I could find them in a sea of feet, a planet or universe of feet. They kicked the sky at birth in that town his great-grandfather found. My man's feet left childhood, past the mineral grit of an oil-flush bust, to these atomic eastbound lands. His feet are made of his mother's spiritual concern and of his father, historic and mindfully upright. What walkers, from mound builder steps that led to the skymaker, past Spanish galleon, stagecoach, and railroad snaker. One generation following another, no other feet but these could bear. The rock's stubborn, loyal bear, towering intelligence and children picker-upper. This is the one who owns these feet. What an anchor his feet provide for his unmatched immensibility and get-up-againality. I've danced behind this man in the stomp dance circle, our feet beating rhythm together, man, woman, boy, girl, sun and moon jumper. My man's feet are the sure steps of a father looking after his sons, his daughters. For when he laughs, he opens all the doors of our hearts, even as he forgets to shut them when he leaves. And when he grieves for those he loves, he carves out valleys enough to hold everyone's tears. With his feet, these feet, my man's widely humble, ever steady, beautiful brown feet.
When I take him with me on the road and I read that poem, there are people lining up to look at his feet. They want to see his
Your
feet.
man's feet.
Yeah, I told him I was going to make a postcard he could sign.
Just take a photo,
Yeah.
do that, and just pass it out. And Madam Secretary, you could tell that poetry means a lot to you. And so what has it meant to you in your work and as you have progressed and moved through life?
Well, I mean, I think that, as I mentioned, words matter. And when you think about poetry, it's very, it's to the point. You don't generally waste words in poetry. You say what you mean what you say. And I've always felt that, I mean, in my business, there's a lot of reading that goes on. And sometimes there are reports that are, 30 and 40 pages apiece. And, picking up a book like this and just reading these words on a page that are packed full of meaning and love and history and natural resources. I think it's refreshing, and it sort of fills you up.
It's a balm too, in a way.
Yes.
Helps calming and things. Should be very helpful.
And of course, Joy's poetry, through the years, she has written things that so many people have felt for such a long time. And I feel like it's refreshing when somebody gets you, right? They put their finger on what you're feeling, or they've written it down, so you feel like someone's listening.
And you're understood too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And conversely, Joy, the Poet Laureate position is the only federally funded literary position in the U.S. And so, as you have been working as Poet Laureate, do you feel that civic aspect to it?
Yes, I feel, even as a poet before I was U.S. Poet Laureate, that we all have service positions. We might be called king or secretary or garbage collector or whatever, but every position is a service position. We're all here to help. We're all here to contribute something and to take care of each other. So I guess U.S. Poet Laureate kind of ups the ante a little bit when it comes to that. But it's enabled me to, I feel like I'm doing what I've always done, but it's I think the Poet Laureate project kind of shows, gave me an opportunity to give back a project, give back something that could be useful to the community. I like thinking of the country as a community. I've said in my poetry and otherwise that a country is a person. It has a life. There's a way it comes into the world. And, there are processes just like any child growing up. And so it's a community, but it's also a community. And so with the project, I was thinking, well, I'm not the only Native poet. There are many Native poets in this country, so that was important. And there's not just one Native, or people think there's a Native American language, but there's a diversity. And in any healthy system, in a healthy community, diversity needs to be honored, because that's health, that's community health. Diversity in thought, in poetry, in all kinds of poetry, in diversity. So I decided to do a map, a digital map, so that everyone could access it, almost everyone could access it. And it would show a map. I guess then I think the next thing is I wanted to have a map that would show how we're connected. And so I picked a map that showed earth and water. It showed earth and water. There are no political boundaries because we get into trouble there. There was no boundary between the U.S. and Mexico or Canada. It was just earth and water. Because ultimately we come from that. That's what we'll return to, and we're here. We're part of it. We are earth. You know, we are essentially. You look at, it's all about context. It's like, and we all need to always search for that context that's larger than the human mind. And when you're there, you see that we are earth. You know, we're part of this. And so the map is like that, and on it are native poets, showing that there are many native poets, and we are from all of these different places. So we can hear the poets' voices, which also allowed for a catalog kind of poets' voices that will remain here past the project. And you can hear the poems and hear the poets talk about place and their communities. And that gives, I think that's important because it gives a context, and it helps the community, our community, see that, you know, there's all kinds of poets, all kinds of poetry. We're all over this country, not just in DC or in these positions, and that we're all together. My original concept was to have every poet, you know, every poet, every native poet, and then show every poet, and then show how we're connected, because I grew up knowing, you know, like Sonia Sanchez, a wonderful poet. She's a friend. You know, all these different poets have gone on, and we all know each other. You ask any of us in the larger poetry community, and, you know, we all know each other. And so I thought that would be great, but that would take a huge staff, you know, to make a map, because it's a matrix or a community. We're in a community that is timeless, and it's also very present and very now.
It's also an extension of the anthology that you did 20 years ago when the Secretary's in there, and now with Living Nations, you've expanded that. And with technology, I think your idea could happen.
Yes.
You could add more, and you can do that. So are there more Native poets that you were highlighting from 20 years ago?
Oh, there's many more. There was another. I helped with a group of all the experts were all Native poets, and we brought out another anthology last October called "When the Light of the World Was Subdued, Our Songs Came Through," a Norton anthology of Native poets. It was a historic run, and even then, we could have done 3 or 4 volumes, but we had a page count. But yes, there are, and the map can be added to a Native group up in Washington State made a map, a digital map that feeds right off of ours, that pinpoints even more poets up in the Washington State area. So,
Madam Secretary, do you see, we're talking maps and geography and things like that any role for poetry and using poetry to give voice to people?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, so many people have a voice. So many people haven't found their voice, right? And the same way I had never written poetry to speak of before I took Joy's class. Not everyone can take a poetry class from Joy Harjo, professor, but they can read and be inspired because other people are participating. And I mean, that's what it's all about. It's us leaving the ladder down so that other people can climb it. It's inspiring people so that they too can add their voice or find their voice, quite frankly. It's not easy to sit down and start writing.
No.
But
that's why I'm a librarian. It's not easy. It's not easy. And telling the story, and Joy, one of the greatest gifts you've also given has been telling your story and memoir, and you have a new one. And is it part of a three series, or?
It seems to be that way. I have a feeling there'll be another one. Yeah.
Because the first one, when I read it, and just it helped so much understand not only you, but everything that you've really stood for, even when you couldn't stand.
Yeah. Well, this is really about, we all have poetry ancestors, and I like what you were saying about how we're here, you know, others, we make a ladder, and we're here because someone made a ladder
Yes.
or handholds so that we could come up. And I think of, you know, familial ancestors as well as, you know, we have poetry ancestors. There's poetry ancestors. So this new memoir is really about those poetry ancestors and learning how to listen. I mean, and I think that's one thing you were saying, Deb, about it's hard to sit down and write poetry. It's hard to sit down and listen, you know, because especially now there's just so much racket going on, you know, and not just traffic and all, but the internet and so much. I think it's constant. And so everyone, and that's available to everyone, is to sit. It's important to take care of your soul, your spirit, because that's what we have. That's what we're taking with how when we go here, we go, and so we come in. So what feeds it? Poetry feeds that, and then to be able to sit down, and you can write. Everyone can do this. It might be poetry, it might not, but it's about listening. It's about, and I have a hard time sitting down too. If I know I'm going to sit down and write, I start cleaning. I start, you know, cleaning or
Doing other
answering
things that are
emails or
very
answering
important,
emails.
that are very important. And Madam Secretary, will you be able to incorporate or use poetry and just the power of it as you?
I mean, it's part, at this point, it's part of me, right? It's, I have to be selective about what I read simply because I don't have a lot of time to read for pleasure these days. But definitely, it always is. It's important to read what sustains you, right? And poetry is one of those things.
And to share it with others, the poem about water. In your role, I could see that being really something to open up a meeting or open up a thing and read that to take people to another place.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yes,
Yeah.
programming.
That's a great.
Programming.
That's a
But
great.
it might be something just to get everybody to pause for a minute.
That's a great
think
idea.
about the importance of what you're getting ready to talk about, water rights. So you have it in your friendship, because that's what we're celebrating today too. The friendship, because it's important to have mentors. You mentioned that ladder. And it seems like Joy made sure you were able to move up that ladder too.
Yes, Joy has been a wonderful mentor, not just to me, but to hundreds and hundreds of Native students through the years, because that's what she truly believes in. And so, I mean, look, I am here. I am in this role as Secretary of the Interior, not because of everything I did, but because of opportunities people gave me, because I decided to say yes to those opportunities. I'm here because of the hard work that my grandmother and my grandfather did to preserve our culture and traditions through the worst assimilation policies of the United States. I'm here because, as I mentioned in my poem, my ancestors fought through famine and drought because they believed very strongly that they were there to provide a future for our people, and I am that future. So, and as Joy said, we all recognize that we have an obligation. We have an obligation not just to give back, to be our best selves, to help as many people as possible, to and so yes, I am fully immersed in all of this, and hopefully, you know, I always say I'm the first Native Cabinet Secretary. I hope that I'm not the last.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we open these doors become open. Joy opened a door. You helped her to open that door, right? We're all here to help each other, and we need to move forward. And I think that's what so many of us feel.
Well, I have to thank you, and of course, on behalf of the Library of Congress, but so many other people for helping us honor Native American Month through poetry and the example that you're giving too. So thank you so much for both of you for being here. And Joy, I can't wait to get into volume 2.